What is up, guys? It's Mason once again, and we continue our coverage of the 2024 Chess Olympiad Ghana's POV, or Ghana's viewpoint. Unfortunately, tomorrow, which is today when this video is going to come out, I will not be streaming the tournament. I've not had a lot of rest. I've actually struggled with the coverage, but I want to do it. So tomorrow I'll be taking a break. Tomorrow will also be my busiest day of the week. I will be taking a break, and hopefully Monday I'll be rested enough to continue with the coverage. So without further ado, let's get straight into the games. The first game we're going to look at is the game between Jijo and Banda Natalie. So the game starts with d4, d5, knight f3, knight f6, e3, the quali, similar to Hezebe's game from yesterday. We have bishop to g4, h3, bishop takes f3. What's happening? Bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, and then we have e6. So slightly different from Hezebe's position. She played the quali Zucatwort, and the game had a very nice tone. But here we have this move queen to f3, and there are very interesting ideas with this g4 move, trying to strike on the king side where your opponent's castles. Here we have c3, just keeping it solid. Black can go pawn to c5, knight to c6, queen to b6. The normal landing developing positions that you see when playing as black, then is the normal things that go on, except with a less well developed bishop. We have bishop to e7, knight to d2, castles kingside, bishop to d3, c5, and then g4, going for this aggressive idea. And here Jijo preempts this pawn push, right? She plays this knight move back, you could say for two reasons: to defend the pawn and to also prevent pawn push. Because if your opponent can't pawn push, you just take, or if your opponent tries to move one before the other, you can take it. Unfortunately, this move doesn't really help, because regardless, if you play this, your opponent can't play h4, and you might say, okay, but I get the free pawn. Understand at certain levels of chess, you have to you know that by opening up files, you are opening up chances of attack against your king. So it may not be the right idea to go for. Instead, you could try to push for your idea on the queen side and provoke your opponent to come forward with his move. So here we can simply go knight c6, and if our opponent comes in with pawn push, then we can go this way. Yes, it does not feel right, and of course if you play Jijo's move, it's completely fine, but this helps you in making more plays, especially towards where your attack would more or less come alive in, which is the queen side. So we have c4, so like a Tharash pawn structure. Knight c6, c takes d5, and I'm sorry, my PC is messing up. Yeah, and then here Jijo goes knight to b4. The same thing again. She is preemptively playing moves, and again, it makes sense. You are worried about the fact that if takes, queen takes, you are going to be down a pawn. But you have this move, right? It's the timing of the move that's very important. It's the timing of the move that's very important. She decides, okay, I'll go here first, right? Which doesn't have as great of an effect. But I think her point was she wanted to capture back with the knight. But to go in this way, for example, takes, pawn takes, and then queen takes, you then have knight here. And now your opponent doesn't have the chance to run away with the bishop, the queen, and now you can win the bishop. Right, that's a slight difference in the two positions. Okay, but again, it's fine, it's completely fine. We have knight to b4, bishop goes back, knight takes, and then we have e4, knight to b4 again, and then the opponent plays e5. Reason being, white is trying to open up a very strong attack against black. Unfortunately, clarifying the pawn structure makes it's very easy for black to come back into the game. C takes d4, queen comes in, threatening checkmate. G6, knight to b3, knight to c6 defending, and then f4. white is beginning to attack. I think the women were playing Botswana, and you see, okay, you can have to look for the game, all the games to see this, but only one person in Botswana castled, as in the opening. Most of them kept their kings in the center and went like balls to the wall attack, right? They were just like pushing for the attack. So f4, queen to b6, h4, f5, e takes f6 and passant, knight takes f6, queen takes, and then rook to f7. Kudos to Jijo. Regardless of how she played the opening, at this point she really was very calm and she really played very well against the amassing attack that was coming against her. I really love the way she played here. g5, bishop to b4 check, and the threat is if you play any other funny business, you get hit with more funny business, right? So bishop to b4 check, king to d1, rook e8, queen goes back, and here again the engine's move was crazy. I don't think you find that anyhow, but the engine went d3, bishop takes, and then knight jumps in here, and I'm like, okay, I do not see the point. Wait, I think I'm mistaken the move. I think it was, wait, knight here first before pawn push, and then you come in this way, something of that sort. I don't remember the engine lines, but then she goes knight to h5, and the reason why this move looks a little bit subpar is you kind of make it difficult for your knight to make more moves in the future. Granted, it's more of a defensive move, trying to still keep pieces watching your king side so that your opponent doesn't have successful attacks against you. f5, rook f to e7, queen to f3, and now we have rook to e1 check, rook takes e1 check, king takes e1 check, king to e2, king to c2, sorry. We have d3 check, queen takes, queen comes in check, bishop to d2, and now we can clearly see that Jijo is winning the position, right? No matter what the opponent does, this position is like winning, right? You can't really defend much against all that's going on here. You can make it a little bit difficult for her to win, but I mean from here it's very simple. So Jijo goes correctly, bishop takes d2, and her opponent plays the intermezzo move here, queen to c4 check. And the point is, I will use the incoming checks to possibly annoy your king and then get something out of the position, because as you can see, these pawns are coming in and the king is sort of very open. So here Jijo plays the move king to f8. This is still winning, but it creates chances for your opponent, and after king to f8 they agree to a draw. Why did they agree to a draw? I think what you just saw is queen check. You have no choice but to play this, and that after knight takes, she has to now move her bishop somewhere. I think this is what she saw, and she immediately was like, okay, there's nothing more in the position, and then they agreed to a draw. During the coverage, I was saying that when this check happens, it may seem strange to play this move, but it makes 100% sense. The best place to put your king in this position is h8, not g7. It's h8, and the question is, why would I put my king there? The next question then becomes, how does your opponent check you? The reason why this move could create problems is because you trade off the queens. But when you come in here, what are the squares for checking you? There's what is it called? There's this square. If the queen could ever get there, it's guarded by the rook. There's this square. If the queen could ever get there, it's guarded by the bishop. Where else? Like, where else can the queen move to check? Here, this square is also guarded by the knight, not the queen. So if you move the king here to h8, there are no further checks, and your opponent has to go back to dealing with this issue. And after knight takes, this is where you're going. Very straightforward plan. But the fear, I think, after coming here, and again, this is a normal move. There's not a bad move. It just creates this situation where you have to now respond to checks, and if you make a mistake, you are losing. So it's understandable for Dijo to decline that, and also it's understandable for her to play this, and at the same time, it's understandable for her to play this because moving to h8 is really asking for it, because there may be lines where your opponent can play the move f6 and now your king is sort of like boxed in and you could lose the game. So it entirely makes sense, but when you look at one or two things, you realize that king to h8 is the best. And yeah, Dijo goes for a draw, and now we move on to the next game between Toby Felix and I cannot pronounce the name. You can't see the names. I don't know why it's still not uploading there, but you can't see the names. This is Gabatswarev. Okay, I don't know. So anyways, Toby is playing as white in this position. She goes d4, d5, bishop f4, London system, c5, best way to play against the London system, and c3 here. So I said I would mention this again during the video. During the live stream, I said that you don't usually want to play c3. You more or less want to play e3 more often than not. And why would you want to do this? It's one of the reasons is you want to create what we call imbalance. An imbalance is basically a difference between the white's position and the black's position, right? The more differences you have in a position, the more life there is in the position. The more similarity there are with the position, the more or less you are going to get into these draws positions. I'm forgetting the word. The more symmetrical the position is. So you aim to create the symmetry, okay, between the two positions. So how does that equate here? If you play the move c3, right, as Toby did here, let's remove every single piece except the kings and the pawn from the board and go trade. If you cut the board in half, you realize that we have 3 on 3 here. If you cut the board in half, you realize that we have 3 on 3 here. So already you have a symmetrical pawn structure if we go this direction, and that leads to drawish positions. And if you look at openings like the Exchange French, you see these type of things coming up, right? These type of symmetrical positions coming up. If I remember my French lines, right? I think it's something like this. I'm thinking about a line where this is traded off, but you get it, right? The pawn structure becomes so symmetrical that sometimes in the end game it becomes, I played the Piets, yes, I think the French is this, right? And then after this, you play something. Anyways, forget about it. But the point is you want to create the symmetry between the two sides, right? And c3 prevents that whole thing, which is why e3 is usually preferred. And the point is, if takes, when you draw the same halfway between both sides, you see that there's a 4 on 3 here, and there's a 3 on 4 here. This symmetry is good, and you normally want something like this. I said I'd say it again in the video just for learning purposes. So anyone who sees that, try and create imbalances in the position, because that's what helps you avoid draws in games. So imbalances are good. Learn to know the imbalances and how they benefit your position and how you can play with the imbalances. Creating some imbalance is not good, but here it's a very good idea to play c3. Not to say so it's good to play e3, not to say that c3 is bad. Okay, so now we have c3, knight to c6, e3, and then queen to b6. And another point, so I've mentioned multiple times when I play during my streams that this is the way you want to play against the London. And if your opponent is not aware and this kind of position happens after queen to b3, I often say that it's a high likeliness that black is going to win this game, and it's white's game to draw. Like if white wants anything from this game, it's a draw, because black has achieved his first goal, which is equality. Black aims to get equality before he takes the initiative, right? And here black has equality and can take the initiative. So after a move like this, queen b3, the next move is c4, and you have to trade off queens, which is the best way to go. So yeah, we go back. That's not what actually happened here. Toby didn't want to go for this kind of structure. She plays black as well, so it's possible she knows what's coming, and then she goes queen to c2. And here black goes e5 first, and it's a very interesting thing I discovered. I mean, I'm sorry I'm delving too much on the opening, but I was really enjoying this. You could go here, right? And if queen takes, you have queen takes, and your opponent's back rank is bad. But apparently, a problematic move for black here is queen takes here. Now I didn't really go through all the lines, but I think it has something to do with the fact that maybe bishop in here, and then eventually you can release a very strong attack on the opponent's king. Don't quote me on that, but that's one of the things. That's one of the problems you have to think about as black. So the move e5 has the intention, which was so beautiful, that now when you play this move, the difference is that after queen takes bishop and you take here, there is no opportunity for your opponent to capture the pawn. That was so beautiful for me to see, and I really did enjoy it. Enough of the opening spiel. Let's continue. It's something I learned and I'm going to employ someday. So e5, d takes e5, bishop f5, queen goes into c1, g5, bishop goes to g3, and then h5. And like I said, these players were not castling. They were leaving their kings in the center, and that was just amazing to see. So black is really putting on the pressure. But black has to be very careful, because since your king is in the center, one mistake and the floodgates could open, and you could get attacked and destroyed. So we have h3 preventing the attack. Bishop to g7, knight to f3, g4. Sorry. Knight to d4. We have bishop to b1. And here I think this was a slight error. If anything at all, you want your opponent to capture here, because it allows you to create problems in the center. What do I mean by that? If queen takes, you are actually looking forward to your opponent playing this, in which you capture this way. Now, granted, it makes sense. The reason maybe he didn't want to capture is because of this. It's like you're dropping something, but then you can increase the pressure on your opponent's position. I think with what was the move? I wasn't sure if it's here or you just play a slow move. Bishop e2 takes, and then some funny idea that the engine was recommending over there. But anyways, so now we have knight takes, bishop goes back, and then the knight comes back. This bishop is pretty annoying, so that's why you don't want this bishop to exist on the board, because it prevents you from also getting this e5 push, e4 push. We have knight to d7, h takes, rook takes, bishop takes, and now we have bishop to e2. This guy's hanging. We have knight to f5. Again, you prefer if your opponent takes, right? But here too, it makes a very okay decision. Knight takes f5, bishop takes f5. We have queen to d2, castles queenside, shocking. And then Toby herself castles queenside. And it looks like black has lost the attack, right? Because after the exchanges, white has a stronger defensive position. Again, it's a little bit scary because your opponent has bishops staring down at you, and again, all of them seem to have these similar kind of idea type positions, all the Botswana ladies. So yes, this is all coming towards you, so you have to be very careful about how you continue the position, but you are not as in as much danger as you were when you were on this side of the board. We have f6, bishop to h4. If you take, I win your rook. The rook comes up, pawn takes, bishop takes, queen takes, queen to d4, queen to e6, and now we have rook to h1. And it seems like white is making headway in this position. I mean, there was a potential of actually going here. I don't know why she didn't really want to go for this, but now you could have done that. We have b6 preventing that whole idea. Queen to f4, some maneuvering, trade off, and of course you can't take this because you hang a rook. We have queen to g3, doing well, holding the pieces down. Queen to f5. We have rook to h4. Queen comes into d3, rook comes into d4, queen goes back to h7. The queen goes to f3, putting pressure on this d5 pawn. Queen to g8. E4, taking advantage of the pin. Not really, because if your opponent does take, it may not be easy to, like, you can't actually just take, right? Because if takes, you might have to play queen takes first, right? a rook to f7, and then here Toby makes a bad move. And again, it's an understandable move. It's very understandable. It's very understandable why she made this move. She made the move queen to e3. And this is what loses her the this is what draws her the game, because her opponent becomes very active. We have queen takes g2, and after e takes d5, there's rook takes f2, and now you have to defend against this attack. Rook here, check. Rook here, come back up, and you repeat the position, and this position is a draw. So what was Toby supposed to do in this position? Again, like I said, I think it's very understandable. Maybe if you look a little bit, you find it. When I see the move, it doesn't look like something that Toby would not find. But again, it's understandable. You've played a game for almost 2.5, 3 hours. You are tired. So after rook to f7, the move is queen to e2. Why? If the position continued as it did in the game with queen takes g5, after takes, rook takes, I'm sure you see the difference now, queen takes with check. And if your opponent comes in here, you go check. If he comes in here, you go this way, right? Again, I'm allowing it to happen, but that's the whole trick of the position. That's basically what you had to see. Again, it's understandable why Toby didn't see it, and that's why this game ends in a draw. I'm trying to make these videos as short as possible, but unfortunately we are already in the 21-minute mark. So we're going to speed up through the Aquanda game. Not many good results today, draws, but I took the potential winning positions. Bernard also had a very good game. You can go and look through it. Unfortunately, 1 or 2 slight errors, and that's what made him lose. But we'll look at Aquanda's game. He played as white. We have e4, e5, knight f3, knight e6. We have the Italian, bishop to c4, d6, h3, bishop to e7, d4, takes, knight to f6, knight to c3, castles, rook to e8, knight takes, pawn takes. And again, this is an imbalance. We have 3 pawn islands, depending on how you calculate the islands. Some calculate the files. I've met people who do that. That's why I say that. And some calculate the pawns. I calculate the pawn. So a pawn undefended by another pawn is an island. A pawn undefended is another island. So these are 3 islands, sort of, in my mind. We have queen to d3, bishop to e6, takes, f4. The position is looking a little bit dull, but you have things, or you can create threats if you do so, please, with, for example, rook to g3, targeting the square. Queen to d7, b3, rook to f8, knight to e2, c5, bishop to b2, rook a to b8, rook a d1, queen to c6, bishop takes. Now we have c5, trying to hold these pawns down. We have a5, queen to f3, a4, rook to d3, takes, rook to b6, and then we have e5, queen takes, rook takes, bishop comes back, rook comes back again. If you take, he can take, and the position is basically very even at this point. Rook f to b8, rook f to f3. Sorry, I'm yawning again. This position is very stale, right? There's not much you can go for, but Aquanda did try his best, and we'll get to that. King to f2, d5, takes, f5. And now you're trying to attack your opponent on this side of the board. I was talking briefly about the fact that, like, your opponent could play rook here, and you could try and come in this way to try and start an attack. But I for some reason did not see bishop to h5, h4. So here we have c6, knight jumps in, rook to e8, king to g3. I didn't like king to g3 because I felt it blocked this, but of course there was a reason for him to do that. King to g3, rook to b4, knight jumps in, c4, takes, takes, rook to c3, rook e4, trying to trade off the rooks. The rooks are traded off. There was an interesting line here. I'm trying to remember what it was. That after this, when the opponent played here, I think the move was to either take or to play something. I can't remember what the line was. I'm very sorry. Takes, rook e3, king to f4, king to f7, rook to c3, still targeting the pawns. Here I was kind of wondering why he didn't play like rook to g3, trying to create a problem against your opponent's king on this side of the board. But hey, rook to c3, rook to c8, g4, h6, h4, c4, takes, and the position at this point is just very straightforward. Not very straightforward, but we are just teetering towards a draw. They both do try their best, but here both players agree to a draw. You could argue that you want to promote, but the problem here is that promotion comes with check, so you have to deal with this first. And your opponent would have to maybe give up the rook for the king, the pawn, and then this position is just draw because it's a bishop versus a pawn. Nothing comes out of this position, and that is why Aquanda and Rocha Maximiliano agreed to a draw. So we just basically showed 3 draws here, but the rest of the games were losses. I think there were other draws, but I didn't show them. I think no, there were just 3 draws this round. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying these recaps. Again, I've not been very used to doing these recaps immediately after games. So if you're enjoying it, always please hit the like button, subscribe. It really does help me out. It really encourages me. I really love your support during this whole tournament because we've hit 200 subscribers. We are just 800 more away from our goal for this year. We really want to hit 1,000 subscribers. So I really am appreciating you guys, and I hope you continue to watch. I hope you continue to support me in all these things that I'm doing. It goes a long way to help me be motivated to keep doing it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I'll see you on Monday. Have a great day. Peace.